this season, but it's going to be a banger. We've got our third place matchup, UIUC versus UMF, and we've also got Pug versus Akron coming in shortly after. And I'm joined here with Soljan Kai. Soljan, how are you feeling, my friend? It's good to
I'm
see you
doing
again.
pretty. It's good to see you again too, Piercing. Thank you very much for leading us in and to highlight that. Yeah, we are in the third and fourth place match between these two absolute titans of what has been a very long season, Midwest R6. I mean, 3 months, and it all culminates in tonight's stream, starting with this match that is capping off the end of Division 1 and 2. We saw UIUC play against Pug last week. We've seen UMF make an unexpectedly good run through the playoffs. And despite this not being the top match overall, I think this is going to be an incredible game of Siege to watch tonight. And I can only hope for the best for them in the next semester. But starting off with tonight's games, what are you looking forward to?
Well, for one, I'm looking to see how UIUC will be able to hold their ground against an underdog. I mean, we know Champaign-Urbana's reputation. There's some heavy hitters. They've got a large roster to work with, and it brings a lot of experience onto the table. But when you've got an underdog like UMF, who is doing spectacularly, as we've seen throughout the season, it really begs the question of who will be able to stand their ground. Will it be UIUC, or will UMF be able to push through yet another one for a striking season? So even though it's the third place position, I still think there are real stakes as far as showing their prominence in this league. So that's absolutely what I'm looking forward to. I think we're going to get a lot of really good rounds coming in from both teams.
100% agree. And that all really does start off with what we're looking at in terms of overall team stats for this season. I think we're getting UIUC in here first. And there's your players. It's good. Oh, new frames and everything too. This is a different look. Production's been busy in the background since I've last really seen it here. We see our screaming the the username that just makes it sound like you're screaming the whole time, but with that nearly 61 Siege player rating overall, absolutely the spearhead of this team, carrying around a rather decent roster in the rest of UIUC Esports here. And I'm very excited to see how they managed to round out against their opponents, especially considering they have a 4-2 record and plus 13 on round differential. This team is absolutely no slouch, and they are going to be showing up tonight in the server.
And it's actually good to see, and you got to have some veracity in it when you say it. Ah, it's good to see him back again, because I've definitely watched him pull off some pretty nasty plays. So that's a name that rings a bell, as well as Rudy. It's good to see them all again. So I do look forward to what they'll be able to bring forward in the matchup. But let's take a quick look at their roadmap. Speaking of their record, see how they've been doing. So we did see them out the jump lose to Akron. They are a pretty strong team. So, I mean, you can't really blame anyone for losing to Akron, as they will actually be in the second matchup. So you got that going on. Then they lost to NIU. So a rough start, but then were able to bring it back with 2 wins versus ISU varsity. Sorry, Cal. And then Akron Club as well took a loss to FSU, and it was able to pull one last before where we are now versus PFW.
And considering that this is an even split, 3 wins, 3 losses across the season, that's kind of a team record that you would think that might not go all that far in the finals. And for them to only slip up at the very end against one of our finalists in the form of Purdue Gold is a rather great turnaround, actually, for this team in terms of how they've been able to pick themselves up in the latter half of the season, despite maybe not having the results that they expected or that they wanted necessarily, but still absolutely deserving to be on the top here. And we'll see how they also fare up against their opponents, because I think UMF has it's a dichotomy really when you compare overall ratings. I mean, we even saw for UIUC that had almost a 61 Siege player rating here with UMF. I think because of their overall rather rough season, you can see they're 1-5 with a -30 on differential, with their highest Siege player rating being a 46 overall. And I think this just speaks to a rough regular season. They've really pulled themselves up by their bootstraps to get themselves into this third place match. So I think that even though we do have stats that we can point to here, these can be a little bit deceptive, because for a team to make it this far, there has to be something special about it, something that's completely unexpected, a wild card or a dark horse, whatever phrase you want to throw in there, that Michigan Flint is going to be able to pull off. And that will also be reflected a little bit better in how their season went overall. Ton of losses across the board to Purdue. The one they got was against UWPL, but they've pulled it back around. So I don't know what to expect from this team, because it's a very, I would say it's a bit of a head scratcher, wouldn't you, Piercing?
Yeah, definitely not what I would be expecting for reaching all the way to fourth and third place. I've got to admit, I'm actually a bit flabbergasted, but then again, that's me not doing my homework, so that's absolutely on me. But I mean, yeah, just the track record's a little rough as far as the matchups go. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of these are teams that we know pretty dang well. KSU, Ohio State, Scarlet, Illinois State University, Purdue, which are some pretty big heavy hitters. Like let's put that out there, so that does kind of put it in context. It's not like they're fighting up against, teams that kind of start to struggle once they get into playoffs. These are teams that can put down some pretty heavy lead in the later stages of the playoffs. But either way, it still definitely makes for a more confusing kind of resume for what we're going to be seeing here. Although they did win out against UWPL, which is quite impressive in of itself. So it's definitely a confusing thing to look at for sure. But I still think there's potential coming in from UMF. I'm not going to be closing them out in any way, shape, or form, because I mean, they're here. And this is what I will be wondering is what got them there.
Yeah, I think the best phrase is down but not out. And here we have those head-to-head statistics of those highest rated players from both sides. A bit lopsided all around. I mean, has double the KD across the season compared to Diane Blaze. That alone does, again, raise some questions about how did they get this far. But I do think that UMF is the like I said, is the epitome of they are the team that is down but not quite out, because even though you have almost an even KD for Diane Blaze and a 46 siege player rating against a 61, and less than a kill per round versus over a kill per round, you see these stats and you're like, this is not going to be an even matchup. But again, I think that a lot of these stats, the early part of the season, them going 1-5 in the regular season was really hurting them there. So maybe if we were looking at playoff statistics specifically, sure, it would be a smaller pool of stats to pull from, but I'm wondering how much closer things would actually be. But that being said, it does look like is ready to carry this team to victory, and UMF is a little bit behind. So that's where we have our player over time. Those are some massive improvements too, Piercing. I mean, look at the increase of siege player rating from 49 to 60 in the space of a season. That is very impressive.
Oh, yeah, and it gets even better from there. Look at the KDR, 1.19 all the way to 1.6. KPR, 1.18 to 1.25. Just across the board improvements. However, there is one metric that he did not have an improvement on. The survival rating went from 27% to 24%. However, keep in mind, this is still about the same, which is about a 1 in every 4 rounds surviving, which isn't exactly the greatest if you can control it. But I mean, considering how much impact that he's bringing to the table otherwise, it seems like for the most part, he's going to be your one and done champion, get several high value picks, get the setup, get the entry, and then some point or another get caught out. And that's it. He did his job, and he did his job well. And statistically speaking, that's backed up quite well.
They have the 2023 G2 strategy of, instead of Doki go kill, it's go kill. And that seems to be working out quite well for them. And that'll be compared to the player over time on the side of Michigan Flint. It's Diane Blaze again. No stats from the spring 2024 season, but we do have quite a bit from the current season. That siege player rating at the 56 and 1.5 KDR, and a higher survival rate too. So this makes me think that Diane Blaze, we might, even though it is the highest rated player overall, that survival rate sometimes makes me think that maybe they're not exactly the first entry, but they could be the second or even flex player. It will be a very interesting player to watch for the duration of this match. just depending on how things unfold in the server, really, because I always bring up the anecdote of you play games of Siege in the server, you don't play them on terms of stats. And I think that UMF is even proving the anecdote further, because again, they've made it this far. How have they made it this far? Well, probably off the back of this one player in particular spearheading the rest of the team ahead, and we'll see just how the rest of them fall in behind them. But we have to go to the maps. What are we playing on today? Well, as it turns out, our first map is going to be Cafe Dostoyevsky, followed by Bank, and then Consulate. Some classic maps, all reworked and changed over the years, but ones that have seen more presence in the playoffs, I'd say, at this point.
Yeah, no, Cafe has actually had quite a lot of presence, especially as a decider map. And we've definitely seen those more standard maps getting cleared out more frequently in the playoffs. This is a pretty typical behavior. Once you start moving up, you don't really want your map pick to be a 50-50. You want to try to avoid that. Sometimes it'll pop up as a decider, which is inherently 50-50, so why not? Screw it. But the rest of the time, a lot of these teams have been wanting to go for more decisive compositions. It seems like that's at least one front that both UIUC and UMF have a mutual agreement on, not going for anything standard or time-tested, such as Border or Skyscraper, but not too experimental, such as Nighthaven or Labs or anything like that. So still pretty reliable picks to an extent. Kind of a mixed bag, I would say.
I also have some stats from last week when I sounded like I have been smoking for the last 20 years and didn't have my voice back fully. UIUC picked Cafe against Purdue Gold and lost it 7-1. And this is, again, their map pick. So despite the thrashing from last week, just to put it in blunt terms, UIUC is clearly comfortable on this map. This is a map that they probably saw the mistakes that they were making last week, and they want to test it again here in the third place matchup, or one that they've been playing consistently, and they said, you know what, it was just a bad week for us. We're going to run it back again. And with Cafe and Bank and Consulate, all three of these maps have like a similar theme of wanting to play on windows in my head for some reason. You play on Cocktail Window, you play on Christmas Window in Cafe. And that kind of expands to the rest of the maps as well. But that will bring us into the player to watch for your Midwest bets. For anybody who's been betting those channel points inside of the Discord server, you should join the Discord, by the way. There's a lot of fun to be had looking at the Trash Talk channel and contributing it occasionally. But Diane Blaze is your player to watch on Cafe. Surprisingly, not the player from UIUC, Pearson.
Yeah, no, that's definitely an interesting aspect to see. Clearly, the community is confident in Diane Blaze, which honestly is kind of surprising. I mean, I'm not saying the stats are bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. But they're not the most sparkly stat lines. I mean, it's pretty decently balanced. KPR 0.84, SRV 25%, KD 1.12, SPR 48.46. This is a pretty balanced stat line and around what I would expect for your average player. You know, nothing too spectacular, but also nothing really detrimental. You know, just an overall balanced player. So it does make me wonder what the community is seeing that potentially neither of us are, you know, picking up on, which is very interesting. I would usually expect there to be a more statistical bias here rather than something more qualitative when making a pick like that. But hey, who knows? Maybe they're onto something and we're not. But you know what we are on? The top 5 presented by UB. Let's go ahead and take a look at that, shall we?
Baby, no money? Who the f do you think you are?
I want to kill him with a maestro. Please let me take it.
Oh, another shirt.
ITBOYBBNO $sign. That's me. That's right. That's me. That's right. I am HRM, the Gen Z Eminem. That's me. That's right. That's me. That's right. That's me. Right. Baby, wings, boy, Jesus Christ, I lay on myself, I up my price, I kiss and I'm like God, no sight. 200K, got me jumping on stage. All white bands, see me whipping mayonnaise. She looking at me, she wanna tight. Shawty got a boyfriend, get out my face. Going on smoky like endo, freak, don't never catch me in a friend zone. Catch real green cheese, pesto, eating a box like bento, memento. Tech, keep pressing like Pepsi, Mentos, fit all money, yeah, this
Pillar is clear.
Hey, I'm the ear boy, been long, money long, yeah. yes, I'm him. You spot on. I-T-B-O-Y-B-B-N-O
Maestro was in small offense. He could still be there.
Above here.
H-I-M, the Gen Z Eminem.
Down.
That's me. That's right. That's me.
Center dead, center dead.
Hot ripping.
We do leverage.
No, you should be good.
Wow.
Him.
Watching a bomb for it.
They're probably not there now.
I'm that baby in the club looking for single lady. Let's go shopping, blow some cash, hop in my bubble gum Mercedes. She rock curvature, I'm curving her, I'm flaky. Please don't hate me. Tiffany from Perth, she nice, she thunder for me, AC/DC.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
T-B-O-Y-B-B-N-O $sign. That's me. That's right. That's me. That's right. I-M H-I-M, the Gen Z Eminem. That's me. That's right. That's me. That's right.
Right out here. Right.
Yeah, trendsetter. Whoa, league of my own, it don't get better.
Still on
No, read what I wrote, I'm a bestseller. Yeah, reach my goals, hit it dead center. Hit it dead center. Bullseye, hit it the most, is no misses. Something
looking
like
Western
fish
right
in
now.
a barrel, it's no different. Blindfold on me, I still got the most vision. Trendsetter told them before, but they don't listen. Better, bring a better bad because I'm bigger, better. Solo, single, selling several shows in every single second. Peter Piper, pick the peck, pickle peppers, kinda came
one more
across the
bird.
competition.
Yeah,
Hope they
nice.
get the message. Look, living
Yeah,
it
100.
fast,
Nice.
living
Yeah,
my
dead.
I never go slow, thinking I'll crash. End up a thinking
that
the past,
gone?
they know I won't though. Big fish catch me, they gon' need a bigger boat. Ironic how the world stops when I spin the globe. Always showing up. Last year's song still holding up. See the name now and they know what's up. Price hit the top,
In 90.
going up. I'm a trendsetter. Whoa.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to our beautiful faces here. We're just getting the lobby set up for these last few minutes in this third place match between ILLINI Esports against University of Michigan Flint. This will be a absolute fireworks show, I feel, because both teams have scrapped their way to the top. Michigan Flint, even, I was looking over their bracket in a bit of the break that we had between us talking over the stats of the match, and they actually managed to beat Akron Club in the previous matchup 2-1. So I think that, again, we're seeing things happening. We're seeing things unfold here statistics wise, where it's a team that we don't expect to go very far because of how they did in the regular season, but they are suddenly showing up here in the playoffs and maybe even stamping their way to a third place. And even if they settle for fourth place, I still think that is far better than what they might have set off with at the end of the regular season. And we're here now in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a respectable standing. You really can't complain there, especially, and correct me if I'm mistaken, I believe this is UMF's first season? I can't remember off the top of my head.
I want to
But I
say
mean, either-
second season, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure
but-
either.
Yeah, so I mean, that's still pretty respectable standing. Also, just got to bring it up real quick. Top 5 editing, chef's kiss, amazing. Shout out to the editor, Cypher. Excellently done. I actually hadn't even seen the top 5, so I'm not gonna lie, I was actually laughing at that. That was pretty good. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we are actually ready for our first map, Cafe Dostoevsky. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Probably did, because I probably did too much research on it.
Dostoevsky. Yeah, I don't know. I don't speak Russian either, so it's not exactly in my lingo. But we'll get
What
close
about
enough.
Espanol? I can speak Spanish.
I can speak Mandarin, but that doesn't help anyone here.
Teach
At any
me.
rate, this is going to be first two bands of the attackers taken away. It's going to be Monty and Ying, not something entirely unexpected for Cafe, because Ying does have that explosive potential to get into those choke points that Cafe is so well known for. And Monty being able to force the issue and take a lot of that space on those specific choke points. Makes sense that you see both of these operators banned. First defender going to be Valkyrie. A lot of places you can hide her cams. So again, pretty standard ban lineup. What do you think is the fourth one, Piercing?
Probably a
seconds.
zombie. Let's be honest. Piano. Okay, Mira, never
Oh.
mind. Y'all still don't like Mira?
I
Never
don't
mind. I
blame them,
always
though.
forget Mira's a thing. Every freaking time.
I think it's like a case that Mira's been in the game for so long, and then new operators have come out. You know, we had that series where Solus was banned every single game because she was absolutely broken for gathering intel for coordinated teams. And so Mira just kind of fell on the wayside as like, it's a kind of good tertiary ban. But now when she shows up, you're like, oh, right, yeah, no, Mira, right, of course, that makes sense for a cafe. As would Azami, but Azami's available, but not being picked by UMF in the first round, interestingly enough. They decided to instead go for the Warden while Ying is banned, so maybe anticipating a blitz from UIUC, but I can't really be too certain on the operator picks, but UMF clearly have a plan in mind with this setup.
Yeah, I mean, as far as compositions go, I'm not seeing anything too spectacular or extraordinary, but I do like the Rydas running the Aruni. I feel that Aruni is severely underrated. And maybe that's just me talking bias because she is my second defender main, so it could be that. But I feel that she's extremely strong on this map. And so I'm kind of glad to see her being brought full circle here by UMF. But the question then becomes, is that going to be work? Because keep in mind, you've got Grim with the Bees and Nomad as well. That's going to be able to take a lot of those walls down. So I think it's going to be a matter of holding those positions, which will honestly be the bigger challenge to rearm them.
Love the way that UIUC is already swarming the side of the map that they want to enter on here. You see them all taking positions up on Snowbelt. They have somebody getting the hatch open on Red Hatch, and White Hatch putting pressure on the Cocktail, and that's going to be the first bit of pressure applied. In fact, it's going to be a bullet applied to the head. No! Misses the second chance on the player playing inside a Cocktail. So Diane is able to trade one back, but it was more of a whiff than anything at the end of the day. Ryda, the first one to go down, but thankfully it's just the Aruni. So if your gadgetry is already on the walls, then you don't have to worry too much more beyond that. Diane also being contended further on this Cocktail window. But it won't be, nothing else will come from it. Just a flashbang out from the hands of Gunner. As UIUC will now readjust their attack after the Ash went flying in, got the kill, and dies. That's that 24% survival rate coming into play.
Yeah, it sure is. But my question is, why did she have Diffuser, though? That's a big setback. You know, I like the boldness, the smokes coming in, the aggressive push into Cocktail, and they were able to get some mileage out of it. But that refrag was going to happen. Rudy getting a very nice shot onto Saito. But I mean, now you don't have Diffuser in hand. This pretty much forces you to play Cocktail, especially as the time runs down, which typically happens because getting that initial third floor presence is way easier said than done in actuality. And we're seeing just that. Joker taking it Rennie as well as he's still holding down the 4 onto Piano. The Repel comes into Piano. So here's the walk-in coming from Gunner. But will he be able to take this pick? Takes a significant amount of damage, gets some tap damage on the Joker, down to half. But will he be able to finish this out? Here's a, oh, doesn't peek at all. Gunner playing, or being able to push up as Joker plays just a little bit too passive there. Bringing it back, 3v2. Very close here with 35 seconds remaining. Also got some roamer presence coming in from left click, but this means that the presence on third floor is a little bit on the weaker side. This gives them that full Cigar side control, but they still have to grab Diffuser from Cocktail side, which allows for significant pushback opportunity from UMF. With 18 seconds remaining, they're gonna have to go, and that's the opportunity for mistakes. Left click sitting so close behind the lines. That could be big and disorienting. There's the swing from Dane, taking down Gunner, bringing it down. 2v2, Diffuser back in hand. Here comes the plant that's gonna be coming from Twitch as left click walks up from the back. Are they ready? They're not. As the triple kill comes in, there's the finisher from left click to give UMF the first round.
What a nail biter of a first round. You really, it kind of had a roller coaster of emotions going through that. You see go flying in, gets one kill, nearly kills the player on Cocktail, but because of a crucial whiff, ends up dying on the regular bar. And I think the plan for UIUC in that round specifically was to get in with the Diffuser, get 2 picks, disorient the defense, get the Diffuser down, and then they play back and play off of the window pressure that they had, because they had those players all swarming around the Cocktail windows, for example. But when whiffs, drops the Diffuser cold inside of sight, you think, okay, well, now they don't really have a lot of pressure on the backside of that, so they have to regain the pressure going in through Cigar. and then push through an ILLINI gate sitting on main bar or go around the pillar on Heaven Bal or New Bal. And that really like stalls them out, even though UMF was down 2 to 3 players and they knew that left click was off site. The problem was that they didn't have the agency necessary to actually get the execute down, and Dian playing so patiently is able to close the round out, but in very, very narrow margins. I mean, we're speaking in just absolute hairs, pixels really, in terms of the difference of how that round could have gone. A couple of whiffs go one way. I mean, if A gets the kill on Cocktail, I think it's definitely a UIUC round, but UMF stands their ground and plays the objective correctly to get themselves across the line there, and I think it's a very admirable defensive round win for them at the end of the day. Here goes A flying in again, by the way. We're inside a Cocktail. Yeah, with only 30 seconds in the round. They must have droned that out earlier for him, because I doubt you'd be playing like that if you didn't have the intel, or if you weren't at least a little bit overconfident.
Well, I mean, if you look at the composition coming from UMF, UIUC can afford to do that, as there's a very low presence on second floor or third floor coming in from UMF. So the top down is very minimal. It's more about applying that horizontal pressure, boxing them in, and making sure they have one player above to catch anyone who's trying to run back on the second floor and circle back, just like we saw with left click at the end of the round. Speaking of, you got one player holding white stairs. Could possibly see an entry pick here. There's the drone, and wow, what a shot coming in from taking Joker on a clean shot over by white stairs. That's going to be the warded player as well, which is quite the detriment, as I want you to pay attention to the utility that UIUC is bringing. You see all of those flashbangs? That is 6 in total, 5 available. With Warden down, boy, those are going to do some damage.
But they are. Nano wants to try and get this floor piece open from the safer side inside of pillars, but because the wall has been reinforced to possibly defend a player who might have been sitting on the upstairs floor, they have to go around the back side of it now, and they won't have quite as easy of an angle looking into the extension of the side. I think it's a very interesting, a well-placed reinforcement considering the verticality that it denies. Rennie also throwing in some fuse charges, though, and this is where this verticality on Cafe, specifically on this kitchen site, becomes so incredibly dangerous. And also with the operator having these hard breach charges, you're able to open up so much on the site, especially if you don't have a heavy roam presence. UMF giving up a lot of space, but even though they've given up a lot of space, UIUC is down to the last 30 seconds in a 4v5 while there's still an echo available. So even if they're able to get a lot of this early aggression, really, Dian playing inside of VIP, fires some shots on the players who dropped into the freezer. Rennie's actually inside a site in the bunker. Gunner guns one down. That's left click to fall, but it's not going to be a flawless round for UIUC. Dian puts his name up in light. Sato firing the SMG 11 off. The Echo drone is there, but it's a little bit too late as the case has been planted. Upstairs has been made into mincemeat, as has Rennie. C4 goes flying up. Rudy removes the head of Dian. And looks all but said and done for right as he peeks around to Freezer. Rudy there with the R4C to close the round out for a very comfortable attacking round win for the UIUC.
Great call from both teams. I like where UMF was going with that, trying to go for a more long game, right? Playing long angles going into kitchen. That's actually a really good strategy, especially with how UIUC approached their top down, went for a more traditional approach. And UMF has a great position to punish with that kind of setup. And so naturally they go back to first floor. And why wouldn't they? It was very close. And this kind of points to where did they go wrong then if they had such a good setup. And the mistake there was the shield player. Rennie really pulled his weight in gold there. By being able to displace that freezer and VIP with those flashbangs and the shield drop, UMF didn't really have a way to stop that plant, especially having the echo just a little bit too late ended up proving catastrophic. And though they had a really strong pushback, that freezer position was just way too powerful for them to be able to handle. And so I think this really could go either which way on the go around. But this does mean that UIUC will likely invest even less on the top down and a lot more towards horizontal, which could put UMF in a more troublesome position mid-round.
if you're having deja vu, it's not just you, it's actually that both teams have chosen the exact same comps from last round. They want to run it back. They are both confident in what they were able to bring. UIUC, obviously, because they won the round, but UMF because they saw some highlights to be had from that round. And I do think that a big contributor to how that round went out was, of course, the flashbangs that you had mentioned going into Freezer. But not only is it just the flashbangs going into Freezer, I mean, Diane obviously sees somebody's drop in, but he doesn't see it's actually running on the shield who is able to get himself into bunker. And so that call out can't be made. You can't say that, oh, there's actually a fuse you're expecting to get pushed, but instead just goes straight into bunker, plants the case, and the round pressure goes in the favor of UIUC. Here we are again, though, because they've read into the exact same comp again for UIUC, they know that this top floor defense is not quite as quite as potent. They'll have a lot of opportunity with which to open up the floor beneath them. UMF possibly expecting more of a bakery side push or to hold a lot of the same angles that they did before. But maybe they've learned a little bit from their mistakes prior. I mean, if Diane gets flashed out, you might think like, all right, well, if I'm getting flashed out, they're probably going to coordinate the drop and we have to get that Echo drone online a little bit more quickly. But that's all going to come down to micro decisions because macro-wise, this is looking pretty similar. You have the Buck opening up the floor inside of mining. You have the Ram throwing out the drones over by the reading room fireplace side. It's pretty much blow for blow, the same idea, the same concept all across the board. The hatch has been opened. The wall's open the same way. They have they have Joker this time, I think, playing on that shield. But it's all up to UIUC to figure out exactly how they want to change their strategy if they need to in this round. And they did bring a hard breach charge this time for that wall to give the long angle, looking into red stairs or the kitchen. But it's a little bit of a calm before the storm, as it were, as we're heading into the last 40 seconds of this round.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really like how UIUC is going about this. This top down has been extremely slow. They know that most of UMF is going to be below, which they are. They didn't change anything. And there's just been no horizontal pressure. With 20 seconds, like you said, calm before the storm. But I don't think this is going to go in UIUC's favor. You got Legions out the wazoo. All utility put in. There's the walk-in. Oh, what? Did I just see that? I did, and there it is. The shotgun blast coming out. Rennie now trying to go for the plant with 30 seconds remaining to Echo. Does catch him. Is he going to be able to plant? He does, but oh, another
No way.
Echo comes out. This is the consequences of playing too slow when you have an Echo on the board. This isn't a 30-second meta, ladies and gentlemen. That doesn't work that way anymore. That crossover with the shotgun was crazy, though.
I mean, like, Nano gets... looks the wrong way up gold stairs, as I think that's where he thinks that the flashbangs are coming in from, but they actually come in from the window on the back of VIP, and that in and of itself could have thrown the round, because if Joker actually had the proper support behind him, it would have been a much more comfortable win for Michigan Flint. So a bit of a scare at the end of the day, but ILLINI Esports leaving a lot up to fate, a lot up to chance and utility by leaving their execute so late. I think they were a little bit hesitant in going in on their information, on the intel that they had, and because of that, you end up losing out to the utility that you have there. You have Echo drones still watching the same spot, and I think that they even adjusted to be like, okay, well, we know if they do this strat again, they have the same setup. They open up the hatch and they go in through Freezer with the flashbangs to go through the whole setup. I'm just describing basically the whole setup at this point. But if they're doing the exact same thing from the last round, you set up the Echo drone to face the same place they planted again, and the adjustment, the result of the adjustment is that you deny the plan in a 1v4 with an Echo drone. That's a good adjustment from UMF. UIUC, on the other hand, they have the same intel from before, and they are a little slow on it, and it's what hands the round to the defense comfortably. Well, not comfortably, it was kind of close, but still, you know, when the Echo drone went out, you didn't really have any doubt.
Yeah, no, 100%. And now, looking back, we're going to be back onto the second floor with UMF. Pretty comfortable there. And like you said, I do like the composition that UMF is bringing there. I'm a big fan of the Solus, but it really just comes down how to use the drones, because look at how many drones are in pocket right now. 5 drones, and there's the consequences. Saito completely catching off guard there, and that's, again, going down very early into the round. And as well as Saito being very low HP, left click does go down in turn, so UIUC does have a slight edge, and that's when it comes to health, because Saito's just 1 shot out. But again, we're now starting to experience a little bit of slowdown, and this kind of makes me wonder, how will UIUC expedite their attack to not have the same 30-second dilemma that they did last time? Remember, those Fenrir utilities are still going to be a problem.
The shield's not going to be a problem, though. Flores being a pretty apt operator to handle that bulletproof utility. And Joker has been pinched into the back of bathroom, though I don't think they're fully aware of his positioning. They just want to try and have that kind of ghost pressure on the player inside there. But if we force to rotate out of bathroom after the ace charges come flying in, an impact nade denies one. No, the bathroom wall is actually fully opened here, but they do have an angle from inside of Freezer if there's something that UMF wants to rally around. Sato's also on extremely low HP, I'm assuming from that first kill that killed left click, had nearly claimed their own life, but being a 2 armor operator is what's barely keeping them alive here at the end of the day. 4v4 with 43 seconds remaining. I think UIUC has done a lot of the utility clearing and the pressure that they need to be able to set up for the rest of this round. And as I say that, Diane is the next one to be Diane. Gunner guns them down. The ARX rings out for their own death. You have to face up against 3 more players of UMF, but that is numbers disadvantage for the players, and Joker is well positioned here, but he actually gets a swing with the MPX. The shot goes out, but he's trapped in here. The bees have shown his location. You don't get lucky twice. You only get lucky 1 time, and in the 1v3, you have the Solus with the SMG-11, but their rotate is caught. Rudy cuts them down on the red stairs, and that'll be a much more definitive UIUC attacking round win.
And I think that this was still pretty doable for UMF. UIUC really picking up the pace there, which was extremely well done. But I think also, too, there was just a bit of an issue of potentially overexposing yourself, possibly from UMF. Either way, could have really went either which way. But also, too, UIUC was able, with some decent rapidity towards the end of the round, gain some massive power positions, which makes it extremely hard to fight back, especially when you're just completely surrounded by the attackers. It doesn't give you a lot of options. So maybe some better pushback, maybe a walk up from Saito coming in a bit sooner. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel that UIUC has definitely, either way, picked up their attack, and this possibly could give them some momentum to pick up even more rounds going forward.
A lot of operator swaps coming out from ILLINI Esports as well on this round, and I think it's because they weren't expecting, all the operators have been swapped out actually. I think that on this half they weren't expecting this team to go to Reading Room again for 2 rounds in a row, or the second floor, yeah, Reading Room and Fireplace. And that's where you see, like, oh, wait, they're actually playing this side again. So we go for more verticality. We go with the Grim again to clear out some of this roam. I mean, I think a lot of that last round was played on the upstairs floor, and that's where UMF was able to, or ILLINI was able to get a lot of their pressure off, was just by being able to cut down a few of the roamers who were playing on the upstairs site, or upstairs above the site. And that led them to a victory. So if they're seeing that strategy again and they know that there needs to be an operator swap, then they're going to go for it. It's not to get the first kill. It's actually going to be Gunner, who is currently 6-2 on the Capitao. Possibly caught a player out on the snowbalk window. I think it might have been a death over by bathroom or pallets. Anyway, caught somebody rotating is what I'm understanding happened there. So no trade back really possible for UMF, as they are now a player down for the last 2 minutes here as they go into 5th round of attack.
Yeah,
oh, great
really
shot.
Dangerous. Oh, very nice shot coming in from the pushback towards Whitehall, but fully flashed here. Minute at 45. This is typically around the time that you want to fall back, but unfortunately, there's really not a lot of options except for the supports there. Saito gonna be taken down by Ob. There it goes. Left click completely alone and isolated. This is what I say. You gotta get ready for a fallback plan. And unfortunately for UMF, they didn't really have one. Now bringing it to 3v2 with Rida and Dian, now the last 2 remaining, but they still have to walk down. And with a shotgun in hand, this is still doable for second floor, but those long fights I feel are going to be a considerable challenge for them, especially look at those long angles. You only really have, you know, Legion's SMG to take advantage of that. So I do wonder how this will play out. Oh, a little bit of shots coming out from Dian does expose his position, trying to get a pick there to turn this around, but won't go through as manages to take Dian down in turn. That's gonna be, you know, rounds for rounds off of that little swing towards the prone holes. And there's the last as takes Ryda as well towards Library.
It all started from that first pick, the missed rotate, I almost want to say disrespect of the Snowbell or White Stairs window. That's where I think the player had gotten caught from, and it was Ryda who, no, it wasn't Ryda. Whoever was playing Aruni in the previous round. I'm sorry, I don't exactly keep track of player names in between all the rounds. It's got a lot of things going on in terms of casting things to keep track of. But whoever was playing the Aruni in that last round got caught off by the player who was still sitting on the rappel on the Snowbout window. And from there, UIUC plays the trade game. You get a player who goes in to cocktail and dies with the case. It doesn't matter if she dies. It's just going to be another trade back because now you know where that player is and you're able to play off of that man advantage for the remainder of the round. So UIUC, even though it wasn't a flawless round, it was still a round that they looked comfortable to win because of how they were able to maintain that player advantage and basically use their own players as another form of intel against the likes of UMF. And this time we're seeing a much more aggressive and direct approach. So usually when you see Kitchen being brought out, you have that upstairs, we have the Nomad, Buck, Ram, and Fuse, I think was what they did attacked with previously. But now ILLINI wants to end this attacking half out on a bang, because the worst they can do is tie the half at 3-3, so you might as well go with the Blitz Sends Glaz combo. This is something that this is a classic combination.
Yeah, but the question is, are they going to be able to push through VIP? Because remember, this was a power position that gave them a little bit of a struggle and had to invest quite heavily to deal with that and bypass it when pushing into Freezer. So I do definitely look forward to seeing how they deal with that, as well as getting the opening. Because again, the walk-in's going to be the hardest part. And I'm telling you, if Echo hits them to initiate a slowdown, it's going to be big trouble. Wow! Oh, what a shot coming from Joker. It's going to be thanks to the Warden. And Shield's going down, catches Rudy as well. That's going to bring it all the way 3v4 as Nano and Gunner are the only two who are alive or up at the moment and with no position to revive. Here comes Dian, able to take Gunner as down, now completely surrounded. That's going to be Nano fighting for her life, but Dian will be shortying it out.
It was an idea that fell apart at the operator picks. UMF had a Warden. You try to play the smoke of the Glaz on that doorway and expect the Warden to peek you. Well, Warden has the same ability that Glaz does. You can see straight through those smokes, and that's where the first bit falls apart on the attack into VIP. And after that goes down, you have the players coming from the back of VIP down below Brown's stairs. And they also fall to a cross being held inside of Whiskey Bar, it looked like. So UIUC, it looked like they wanted to end the round by having a little bit of a goofy comp, but UMF was not going to be playing their games, and they'll be evening the half out at 3-3. On Cafe, I'm not sure what to think about that, honestly. I think it's a respectable attacking half, going even overall and expecting to even win the last round by bringing a goofy comp, but even still, going into your defensive side for ILLINI, having 3 rounds already to your name, if things go as they do in the standard defensive meta, and this half ends up being a 4-2 defensive half as it usually goes, UIUC might be coasting their way to a win on their own map pick, if not even sooner, depending on how these next few rounds go. They'll be setting up also on the second floor, interestingly enough, not on the third floor directly, as we saw UMF was preferring to go to first. It was third floor and first floor was their 2 main sites, and then they played a couple rounds of reading, but Kitchen was the main bomb site for them. This time, ILLINI says, we're actually going to set up on the second floor and see how you do with this kind of tertiary site, really testing the attack and their knowledge of how to attack this in the round to come.
Well, and that's absolutely a good call to make, because if you win second floor and first floor, which is historically expected, unless you kind of fumble the bag on the first floor, then second floor is kind of your choke point. After the attackers kind of learn what you're going to be doing, that kind of makes it a bit tougher to play around second floor altogether as defense. So I think this is actually a really smart call coming in from UIC to kind of glean that information and have the highest chances. But it does come with opposed risk. If UMF picks up this round, it could build some momentum as it gives a general repertoire of what UIUC is going to be planning here. Is you're going to have elements of kitchen and third floor when approaching second floor, which could make going forward a bit more difficult. So this is a bit of a risky gambit, I would say, but only time will tell if it pays off, as so far, neither teams have really connected with each other quite yet, except for now. Gunner able to take Joker. That's going to be from above. That's going to be quite a setback. However, Nanovirus goes down as well. Saito taking another, bringing it to 2v4, as that's a considerably successful vertical, and this is where I say that risk may not have paid off. As now it's up to Rudy and Rennie to try to save this here. Here's the vertical pushback. That's going to be coming from Rennie, able to take Day In down. That's going to help the odds a little bit better, but we will see the fallback back on the second floor. And now the cards are all in UMF's hands to make this push down.
UMF might have 3 players standing, 3 guns available to them, but they don't have all their health bars intact. If Sato does take a bit of damage here, that could be the end of it, but it's actually the end of Rennie at the hands of Left Click, who just drops into the laundry hatch and catches both players off guard. Not even that they weren't looking in the right direction, they just happened to have the wrong peaks go completely against them, really. UMF pulls ahead for the first time in this match. Previously, they had been behind, and they tied it up 3-3, and now they are the ones with 1 round to their name on attack on ILLINI Esports map pick, which is could be a precedent for greater things yet to come, but it was a tertiary site, so UIUC will look to recuperate their losses from that last round and set up defensively now on one of the primary sites on the third floor bar. An interesting combination of ideologies really coming between these two teams. We see the ILLINI is brought just about every single round, but now we see the Mozzie for UIUC's defense, which did actually get a buff recently to have 1 more pest added to the pockets. That's a lot of intel that you can gather and take away from your opponents. So an operator that I always enjoy seeing, because when teams bring it, it does feel like it's the kind of operator that they have to specifically strat for, or is like map specific. And I like those because it makes me feel like the team has done their homework. They are picking this operator for a specific point, not because it's strong like Azami is. Which, funny enough, I don't think we saw Azami a single time on UMF's defense, if memory serves correctly. So clearly they're not going to be trying to bring the strongest stuff. They're trying to bring things that they know work for them. And honestly, more power to them. It seems to be working quite well.
Well, and I think that makes a lot of sense when you think about it. What is Azami primarily played for on this map specifically? It's going to be piano. However, the problem I see with Azami is once you lose that piano control, what does that utility really do for you? And in my opinion, the answer is not much. And often Azami players typically hold that position with their lives, and considering the amount of presence that will come with it, that's not usually very favorable. Right? So Azami's kind of in a pickle where, you know, if you're playing it up, you can't really fall back. But anyway, that's another story for another day. Maybe UIUC will bring it, maybe not. But back to the main, or to the current round. So far, we're seeing a little bit of a bottom side up approach into attacking this third floor site, which I don't usually see very often. So I do wonder how this will pay off. And we're seeing just a little bit of that. Joker with a very nice line of sight, not even on the rappel. Gonna be able to take down another early pick coming to there, and Gunner going down as well. That's gonna be Saito, as they are starting to get mass control. They've got piano, bathroom, and now here's the deep freezer swing possibly coming in, and that could be big as Rudy goes down as well. That's big thanks to Left Click. Another one coming down too, and it's gonna be Nanovirus, the last one alive, as UMF gets an extremely clean sweep onto site as the plant is now going down. A little bit of a comeback. Nano taking left click, but still has a lot to push through here. This is a big challenge coming in and will get cut off from Piano.
I'm so curious as to where that round went for UIUC as well. UMF seemed to have just gathered all of the control that they possibly needed. Like you said, with that kind of bottoms up approach to the attack, going from the lower floors and then working their way up to that third floor, instead of what we usually see where they pressure onto the windows of the third floor and then push in through one of the hatches or take one of the stairs from the second floor. Very, very diligent, I would say, in terms of an attack for UMF, and it pays off in dividends. We saw there was a part in that round that I was a little bit confused by personally, where Zofia was already inside of bathroom and caught the smoke who was rotating in through piano. How did the Zofia get there? Well, a replay would be able to tell us exactly, but I think that the point of the Zofia being there is not exactly how she got there, but rather the fact that UMF saw a weakness in the defense of UIUC. They did what they needed to in terms of checking off their checklist of finding where everyone was and exploited that exactly to a T where they needed to. They felt so incredibly comfortable in that round, and now they are just one round away from taking us to match point on attack. Funny enough, Ryda doesn't have a single kill in this game. Rennie, on the other hand, also not doing too well herself, but two players on the lower end of things, whereas Dayan, as we were told, is carrying UMF as we expected. I mean, that's what we saw in the player to watch for the Midwest Bets ahead of this map, was that Dayan was going to be the one to shine for UMF, and shine he has so far. It's going to be a third floor defense again for UIUC. They want to see if they can actually hold this bar location. I think we talked with, when we talked with Purdue Gold in the interview last week, they said that they were surprised to see UIUC bring themselves to Cafe, but I think UIUC bring themselves here again because clearly they have some level of comfortability and interest in playing on it. Oh, a spawn peek going out, left click being threatened here inside a spawn by Rennie, I think. With the deagle out, but at any rate, nobody dead yet. Would have been a good boon for UIUC to hopefully get back to their winning ways, but as it stands, all players are still left alive.
Yeah, I mean, it's not looking too crazy so far. Looking at possibly a more standard second floor hold, although you do have Dayan already starting to move their way up towards second floor. However, does spot the head high holes, knows somebody's gonna be playing around second floor. That's gonna be Nanovirus looking for that stairs push, and that's a pretty risky gambit to push up there. I mean, you got a lot in the side going through two different rooms. You got mining museum. It's a little scary. Not gonna lie, but that does provide a clear impetus to probably clear this out more thoroughly, especially with that K charge. It's gonna be able to block out the red wall from getting open. And there's the peak. Does spot Dayan, but no damage going through on either side. This is a pretty big slowdown coming in from UMF. If that red wall's still not open and having to deal with a player below with a Nitro 2, it's gonna be a little bit of a choke point if they can't clear it out, as that means they're gonna lose a player, which they already have. Left click now down. That makes things a little bit more challenging time-wise. However, the pick from Gunner, thanks to Dayan, does certainly help to clear the situation just a little bit, but not before Dayan gets caught in turn. It's going to be a refrag, still revivable though, but no teammates nearby to be able to do anything quite yet.
I really like this adjustment from UIUC. We were talking about how UMF wanted to clear the lower floors and work their way up to the site, which was how they gathered so much pressure on that previous bar attack. Now UIUC recognizes this change that they've made and instead decides to go and have this extended roam. The double walls being opened up through fireplace into mining is something that would clearly indicate that they were, prepared for this change to come through. Is the next one to die, but Nanovirus makes it good for, I think, 3, actually. Got a headshot on to Ryda. Oh, an ill-advised jump through the cocktail window. Poseidon is there. They are very well aware of his position. As C4 goes out, a red ping. Nanovirus, the hero of the round. I think that's 4 for the player. As ILLINI Esports brings one back.
Yeah, Nano was absolutely huge in that play. A great counter adaptation coming from UMF, even though they did play more traditionally above on the third floor, but having that player to deal with that offsetter, right, was massive because we saw how much damage that presence from below did to UIUC. So to have a small setup with not even a lot of investment, just one reinforcement and a few rounds spent, and to have all that impact is really nothing to scoff at. And that's a great adaptation, honestly, to come around. And that's what you use those timeouts for, and was used quite properly, and does kind of swing the rounds back into UIUC, even though they have a round differential. Because unfortunately, they took too many gambits, right? They took one, bringing it to 3-3 with the rush that we saw. And they also took a gambit with second floor. Both of those didn't end up working, and it's put them on the spot where they're now at a disadvantage. That's what I was talking about, why second floor can be a risky play. And unfortunately for UIC, that became a reality. And so now with the timeout, they've shut down the momentum from UMF. Now it's a matter of sustaining it if they can. They're on a completely different site now, first floor. Now, how does UMF go about this is my question.
A little bit less heavy in terms of the direct upstairs pressure. No Buck or Fuse. I have to be very careful with saying that one, otherwise I'll have JD yell at me. But Buck and Fuse not present in UMF's attacking lineup. Instead traded out for a Thermite and a Jackal. They've actually brought this Jackal Grim combo pretty frequently, and I think that their idea is that they want to try and find a lot of these roaming players, these players who are willing to counteract a lot of their tendency to clear every part of the map as they possibly can. Like, if you're clearing a lot of the map, you probably also want to make sure that you're safe to do so with the Grim. A Nomad air jab goes out. Narrowly catches Rennie inside a prep.
Amazing air jab.
It was insane. I mean, Rennie tried to prone to avoid it, and it didn't work. And now they have actual control over this main wall. However, it is mute jammed for now, so you don't actually have the utility available. But as soon as left click gets upstairs and opens up that wall and has an angle on the main stairs, shoot mute jammer out, and this round gets blown wide open for the attackers.
Yeah, but that's way easier said than done. As UIUC recognizes the situation, they have players above, and there goes left click. That's going to be Nanovirus to take them down from above. That's what I was talking about. And now that presence in the kitchen means nothing if they don't have a means of shutting down. However, Dayan does manage to catch Gunner, which could provide an opportunity to get that wall open, but at that point, you're already there, so what difference does it make? Sustaining a significant amount of damage. It's going to be from Joker, now playing the horizontal on the second floor. Going to be able to take Ryda down, bringing it 3 and 2, and with players above, this is rapidly looking more dire for UMF, especially as Joker goes down as well. I'm telling you, Skupos is so valuable for that roam, and we're seeing that impact right there. However, Dayan is on site right now. I don't think anyone is aware of that info, which could possibly bring a big opportunity to offset UIUC's positioning here. But the question is, do you go for a plant or do you try to take one? And so far, he's playing it really, really slow here, waiting for someone to possibly walk back into sight, but I doubt that's going to happen. He's going to have to take some initiative and find somebody. Otherwise, that plant is not happening.
Nano reacting to some audio, eventually peaks up with the SKS and knocks Dayan down, who had managed to find himself in a site, but you saw Nano flicking around. There was some audio there, but they weren't exactly sure where the player was, so the impact made to possibly catch him through the wall. I think what the plan was there for Dayan was that they were trying to sit inside a site and see if they could catch a defender rotating back on the site. And there was one that had rotated back on the site, but not in the way that he had expected. It was a teleport from Skopos, and that's kind of how that round goes. Nanovirus being a force to be reckoned with in these last 2 rounds. I think 7 kills in the last 2 rounds, if my math is correct. I have 3 on that round with the Skopos, 4 on the previous round with the Kaid, so 14 and 5 their total tally, and being the defensive demon that UIUC was really looking for to tie the rounds up for them. And now you see you on the Pulse playing inside of the reading room bomb site. This is going to be a disaster if UMF isn't able
10 seconds left.
to hold this this attack on the top floor. Because again, with Cafe, a lot of the philosophy is you want to play a lot of top down, a lot of the soft destruction to get some of these and get the players who are on the upstairs floors off of those upstairs floors, so you can have that pressure looking down in the site. When you don't have that capability available to you anymore because of Nanovirus, who will be giving a lot of information, potentially getting a kill with the C4, that's going to be a problem. So this is going to be absolutely a player to watch, because not only can you defend site with the Pulse, but you can also extend and possibly get a kill off of site while sitting on your phone, basically, the heart scanner. UMF, though, looking to do a lot of the same as they had before, which is clear out the roam on the upstairs floor, get their verticality established, and then work their way down. So very similar style, but instead of bringing the buck this time around, Sato has instead opted to bring the changed Blackbeard, now with that rifle shield, but it's a full body shield. You can't shoot behind it until you aim down sights, which takes a little bit of time, but not too much if you bring the right attachments and everything. Dan's also on the first floor, clearing out the rest of that room. No footprints have been spotted, but a drone has, so Nano knows that there's something up with the game here. A slow peek up from Dan on red stairs.
Yeah, has a little bit of a hint that there's somebody close by, takes a little bit of damage. That's going to confirm it coming in from Nanovirus. But with a lot of intel still available, there's opportunity to try to isolate this player. But with that cardiac sensor, it's going to be really hard to get the jump on him. It's going to have to be a raw fight coming in, but so far no progress on that. But meanwhile, on the third floor, we are starting to see a push, a little bit of damage coming in from left foot from a different flank. And they do have that immediate bar presence. And there's the first pick. Another one going down as well. It's going to catch both Saito and Gunner. Still contesting for third floor presence as they start to close in on Cocktail. That's going to be that Cocktail swing. Oh, but from White Stairs will be able to disrupt that. That's going to be taking another player down as well. Bringing it 4v3 with UIUC at the helm. And with Pulse now completely unaccounted for from below, this is going to make for quite a challenge, as any movement they make going down to second floor will be well known and well spotted. So again, no jump coming in from UIUC, no element of surprise. However, Dayin seems to disagree, possibly looking for an opportunity to slip a pick in. But again, that cardiac sensor, all that information available, I don't think that's going to happen.
Nano still peeking over by the red stairs where they had their first engagement with Dayan, but Dayan will instead find the head of Rennie, who had been sitting so peacefully on site. Might have even been a mistake pre-fire through that window, but there's only 10 seconds left and there's a Goyo fire in your way. So you have to either run through that into the gun of Rudy. Dayan actually does kill Nanovirus, has been the star of these last couple rounds. Traded back, but there's not a lot of time left. A plant has to go down. Rudy's in a 1v2 and he's on such low HP between the two players, and the pistol comes out. Ryda gets the plant down, gets a kill in the round, but it doesn't matter. It's been left far too late. The defense wins round 11, and despite being down 5-3 going into an earlier round, ILLINI has brought it back to match point. They're now 6-5 going into the final round of regulation.
That was such an extremely close round. I mean, UMF had a great comeback from Library, but that stall from third floor just proved too much. And worse yet, when you got a Goyo fire blocking you off, it just makes the time so rough. But I mean, they were able to take one, but just couldn't finish the job. And that's kind of where all of that struggle on third floor and the damage that Nano was able to get, that intel, I'm telling you, it was so big that round. Being able to identify where these players were coming from and preemptively cut them off, like we saw towards the end of the round. It's those little things that can just have a drastic difference. And UIUC has clearly learned that lesson and has taken it in strides, being able to turn it around. And in fact, like you said, match point. But UMF is very well within range to be able to take it back into a potential overtime. And we even see the Azami now. It's finally been brought out, and that's going to be by Rennie.
I think Rennie had played it once on earlier round and got her second kill with it as well, if I'm not mistaken, on the round. But there was one round where they had done the classic, the Hall of Mirrors setup, as I like to think of it, where you are just setting up all of these illusions and walls to hide behind. It's so, what's the word, disorienting to try and walk into that room after a zombie's done her upholstery fixing. There's like so much construction work that this operator does here. And that's something that UMF has to attack into now with a player down. Sato, your ace player who could have possibly gotten that red stairs open, is actually going to be the first one to die outside of the reading room window on the balcony. Or not reading room, sorry, mining window.
Yeah, and that's a really tough loss, as the UMF has no other hard breaches available, which means now they're going to have to try for a white walk-in and a mix of different approaches. Does spot Gunner, takes a little bit of damage, left click able to take one, as well as Joker. These are going to be big early picks that allows them to possibly get the walk-in that they are going to sorely need, because those funnels up through Cigar or up through White are going to hurt. You're gonna lose somebody. There's really not a lot you can do about it, but with this, those terms are now negotiable. That is on the table. That is acceptable losses for UMF, being able to take Rennie and Gunner down, which are two crucial picks.
Sitting on an angle that's watching that mining jump in, but UMF has other plans. So does Nanovirus, sitting on a very interesting off angle on White Stairs right now. But UMF will have to try and dissuade him from that position. C4 still in pocket, by the way. Goyo canisters still available for the defense. If they just play time and play patiently, they'll be able to win things out here. But left click swings around the corner, but is just too good. Is ready for the slow peek. Evens out the man count. There is a minute left in the rounds. Both teams do have enough time to flex here. But UIUC, if they can get these picks, if they can hold their defenses as they are with Rudy knocking down Joker, they'll be taking things over to the round win. A go canister of a Cigar is popped, but so is So it's a 2v2 situation. Dayan has the ability to get some of this information back with 2 more Jackal scans remaining, and then Zokebi as well. He can't pop open this wall because it's left soft with the pocket shotty, but a C4 has been pre-placed for this walk-in position. UMF might not be able to take this round over their opponents if the setup goes incorrectly, or if UIUC has read into it correctly themselves. Ryda goes through, but the pre-placed C4 wasn't even in the correct position. This is going to be more of a default plant over by the backside, but Nanovirus claims one. It's actually going to be the planter. Nanovirus just has to live, as does Rudy, on a little bit of HP, and this is going to be UIUC winning map number 1.
UMF, you were so close, but where was the support there? You gotta cover your planter there, and that just didn't happen. Left them fully open for that swing that we just saw there. I mean, honestly, extremely close coming from both teams. UMF putting in one heck of a fight. I gotta say, props to both teams. I mean, just narrowly taking it to a map win and avoiding an overtime. But I gotta talk about, that gambit that UIUC took. That was way too close for comfort. Taking that rush and then taking that second floor gambit, neither of which paid off, gave momentum to UMF, to which they swept several rounds on attack consequently in very clean fashion. But this is where I say timeouts are extremely underrated in this league specifically. A lot of teams don't use their timeout. And if any scenario is an argument for why you should, it's this map. That timeout perfectly called. They were able to identify a lot of UMF's patterns and behaviors, especially with their walkbacks, and were able to find an opening, to fight back against the underplay, pushing up from Golden Stairs. That hit UIUC pretty dang hard. They were able to correctly identify that and adapt it, as well as being able to push back when they're getting surrounded. Just overall, very strong adaptations. And I feel UMF just kind of tapered off towards the end when it came to making round-to-round adjustments. But either way, still brilliant plays coming from both teams. It could have easily gone either which way.
It definitely could have. We even saw with UMF, they were at one round away from match point. It was 5-3 initially before Illini Esports went on to win 4 rounds in a row on defense to take us to maximum regulation time. I mean, realistically, outside of overtime, you can't get any closer than that. And so very well played from both teams. But at the end of the day, Illini Esports does win their map by narrow margins, and we'll be bringing you into the next one real soon after a quick break.
Tap tap, yeah, I want that. No lines, I don't cut back. Sweet, salty, and all that. Let loose, come get that. Can you play that back, back, back? Can you run that back, back, back? I'm trying to play that back, back, back. I want that. Tap tap, let's go, let's go. Tap tap, let's go, let's go. Tap tap, let's go, let's go. Right here, can you feel? Let's go. Tap tap, let's go, let's go. Tap tap, let's go, let's go. Tap tap, let's go, let's go. Right here, can you feel that? Ooh, you feel that? Ooh, the real back. Ooh, I'm still that. Ooh, you catch that? Ooh, I guess that. The best back. Yeah, yeah. 30,000 up, I'm a pilot. Might jump out if I'm wildin'. Catch my flow, I'm so stylish. Tap tap, real smooth. Can you play that back, back, back? Can you run that back, back, back? I'm trying to play that back, back, back. I want that. Tap tap, let's go, let's go. Tap tap, let's go, let's go. Tap tap, let's go, let's go. Right here, can you feel? Let's go. I'ma give it all I got, can't quit, can't stop. I'ma be shut it down like this. You ain't coming to my house, you ain't about what I'm about. I'm taking nothing down. Defense wins games, whatever it takes. I bring it. Defense wins games, whatever it takes. I bring it. I'ma give it all I got, can't quit, can't stop. I'ma be shut it down like this. Defense wins games, whatever it takes. I bring it out. Let's go.
Beats.
Welcome back, friends, to the Midwest R6 broadcast. I'm Zoro Kai, joined here by Piercing yet again for some more casting of this third place match. In case you're just joining us now, we were just on Cafe, which was picked by ILLINI Esports. And despite being down 5-3 towards the start of their defensive half, they managed to pull things back and win it in regulation 7-5 as UMF was unable to get it to overtime. A very closely and hotly contested map, one that we'll probably be looking back on for years or maybe months yet to come.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way that just played out was so good, but we're not done yet. We still got a second map to go. And for the player to watch, that's going to be Day in Blaze with an SPR of 56.62, KD 1.33, KPR 0.67. So not as active in picks on average, but still with a very high survival rating of 50%, which is very commendable, I would say.
It is extremely commendable. I mean, we even saw Dan being the key linchpin in a lot of those attacks. The immediate Damos ban. I don't even have the time to finish my sentence before that one's off the board. UMF does not want to see this man in their games, and there's going to be another attacker joining him real soon. It's going to be the Monty, a ban that we have seen rather frequently across the board.
Yeah, the Monty ban, typical, expected. Dealing with Monty in blue is extremely annoying. But the Damos ban, I'm so fascinated with. This is a smaller map that I don't feel that a Damos ban is justified. And, I mean, we did see some Damos coming in from UIUC, but I don't think nearly enough for it to be that big of a threat. And I still hold my reservations about Mira. A little bit less so on Bank, but still stands. And then finishing it off, UMF going with the Valkyrie ban. But I just think that these bans, I don't think quite have the impact as far as map dynamics. But what are your thoughts? So, Jordan, do you agree? Do you think that's doesn't really have the impact that, you know, UMF might be expecting when it comes to defending, or is there something I'm missing?
I think I kind of agree with you. A lot of these bans feel a little more cookie cutter, if I were to put it in any other way. And I think that's because of how almost identical they are compared to what we saw on Cafe. And we didn't see a whole lot of Damos on Cafe, if any, being brought up by either side here. But we saw Ying take its place, and otherwise the bans are the same across the board. Mira, you can make a good case for because there are a lot of annoying setups that you have to play into. But I'm surprised that there aren't any other map-specific bans, because sure, you get the Mira, but you haven't got the Kaid, or even the Goyo is an operator that I would say is a potential decent defensive ban, especially on this basement site, because when you can set up all those Goyo canisters over by the default plant on the server side of basement, that's a lot of time that you can deny with just one operator, Mira or no. And so not letting that operator still go through and choosing to ban the Mira and the Valkyrie, it's like they're good bans, but there could be something that you were playing into more specifically. I feel something that you would indicate that you've done some research on the team that you're playing against, where you're like, I don't want them bringing this specific operator. So maybe that's the Damos in here, but I tend to agree with you, actually. I think that the bans aren't the most inspired. Is what I'll say it is here. However, what is inspired is this extended roam over by Castle. I mean, look at this is an interesting hold inside of open office and area, or open area and office.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of it. Honestly, I think what a lot of players do wrong is that they don't really have the presence and they overcompensate for surf. Don't get me wrong, it's a strong position, but when you have operators like Goyo, which Gunner is running, I don't think you really need to worry about it all that much, especially when the time runs down. And when you have open area, if something goes wrong in blue, boom, you can just rotate out, you're good to go, right? Although the castle does make that a little bit tenuous to achieve, but I mean, you still have a lot of flexibility to contest that. And speaking of blue, we're already seeing just that. Ryda starting to set up towards the server, as well as Saito now getting that wall open as well. But no major push or attempted plant yet. They were able to burn off a Goyo. I would say that was done way too early. So there might be a need for rotates, but I don't think UIUC forcing it is what they're going for or would be the right play.
I wonder where this other Kaid Claw went as well. We see one that's on the vault, and I'm guessing the other one's on the elevator hatch, possibly to dissuade the attackers from taking this backside push. But now UMF have been given the opportunity to push in through the default plant site, and the Goyo being popped early means that at 1 minute and 20 seconds, you just don't have the ability with which to continue. However, Nanovirus is upstairs again. They had this position held and somehow denies the plant from upstairs, even though Joker was well aware and available of this player. I even gets the kill from inside of Janitor, and the case is down. Ryda does eventually get that down, but now you have only Dayan who does get the kill onto the player. You have the plant to worry about. The fire is actually burning all the defenders who are on this, so it's up to Rennie to try and get the angle, but she can't quite get it. It's a bit of a wide swing, but Rudy will make up for where the smoke cannot land the shots, and now all that remains is for the players to wait for the Goyo to run out. You know what? I understand. I always mistime the Goyo canisters myself, but that'll be a quick execute from a UMF attack and an even quicker round resolution from ILLINI Esports. It looked like it was all clear, but in reality, when the defense had not been fully cleared out on that second floor or on the open area site, and the hatches were wide open, losing your initial planter in the form of Sado to Nanovirus on that hatch while not being able to follow up with Joker just feels like where a lot of UMF's attack kind of fell apart. They thought it looked safe. They clearly hadn't done enough work to find out where those roamers are, and UIUC wins the round a little bit more comfortably than you would initially expect in the post-plant scenario.
I gotta say, that was really bold coming in from UMF. I like the simultaneous push, but it was too spread apart, and they, like you said, didn't have the investment needed to deal with open area. That was a big choke point. We did see a little bit of pushback, but it really just didn't do enough for UMF. They didn't really have the backup that they needed, and they didn't even have options, really, outside of pushing into CEO room. There really wasn't much to work with there, which I think was a critical, mistake to kind of let it go unaddressed in utility investment. So, I mean, they still got some good impact, but I mean, when you have open area still in its ideal shape, it's gonna be a problem. And that force pretty much sealed the deal for UMF being able to take that round. Even though they got the plant, it didn't matter.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that was just the wrong form of thinking, really. You see that, oh, there's a castle who's playing in open area, an office, and they have all the hatches open. But then they get control through stock trading, I believe, and then walk their way into open area and office. And they think, oh, cool, we cleared the castle. He's retreated back to site because it's obviously the hatch that he's taken in. But instead, Castle just goes back upstairs with the alibi of and catches the player through Janitor, through stock trading, the same route that UMF had taken themselves. So I think that the line of thought that UMF had there being like, oh, they gave up the site and the player, that means that the players are treated, was a bit of a mishap, really, in their part. And UIUC plays into their setup perfectly. They know that they have those rotations available while also being able to deny an easy rotate from the attack to go from that kitchen side into blue. You might have a player who's playing on the main breach from blue side, but you don't have the ability to actually hold it off or go for a quick rotate down those stairs to catch the diffuser again. And that's where the defense is going to punish you for that. Main wall has been opened on the back of kitchen as well, as UIUC patiently waits their attack.
Keep us strikes true.
I like the setup that they had initially. They looked like they were geared to push through archives, which I think would have been a big choke point coming in for UIUC. But then they opened up the open area wall, which is where you have at getting some considerable damage down to Ryda. And I think this might just be putting on a little bit too much momentum for UMF to be able to handle, which you now have two fronts. However, so far, handling it just fine. Ryda going to be able to catch Nanovirus down. That does give them a player advantage, despite having one at cripplingly little health. One bullet, all is that it's going to take. But my question then is going to be, are they going to be able to hold on from there? And so far, it's looking like maybe not, maybe so. They do manage to catch Saito down. That's going to be a player off from UMF, but they've already gotten deep into archives. which is going to be huge alongside that wall. All they need is a walk-in into open area, and that's going to spell big trouble for UIUC. They just need to hold here. But whether they do, I think, is the question that I have. We're seeing a little bit of activity, and that's going to be left click able to take Rennie down after that shield. Very perfect timing, and it looks like they're going to be taking initiative. Here comes the walk-in, looking to catch one by the double. That's going to be left click successfully taking Rudy down for a double kill. Plant now going down. Oh, but it gets interrupted with 2 seconds remaining. They're going to have to commit to this plan here. Dayan now going for it. Gunner, the last one alive, looking for the planter, but not going to be able to find his diffuser. Does go down. Manages to catch a double kill. The left click's going to be there to torture him with the melee bashes. Dayan will finish the job.
A round that will have you on the edge of your seat. Dayan immediately picked up that diffuser and started planting. They knew with the time remaining in the round that there wasn't a whole lot to work with. Wherever that diffuser fell was exactly where it had to get planted. And a couple of stray bullets going into the body of the player who had been planting would have spelled absolute disaster. I think even in the end of the round there, the castle player dropping in from the hatch above, they got red pings from a bulletproof cam that had been placed in the back of kitchen earlier. And they fire onto the red ping of Dayan, who is currently planting on not full HP at the time, but they fire too high. They're expecting the player to be at standing height. They don't know that they're actually getting a ping of the player who's defusing at the moment. So a couple of bullets going a little bit lower on that soft wall inside of small office on that first floor makes that go in the favor of the defense. That's how close that was. But instead, what ends up happening is that a couple of shots go the wrong way. The attack manages to rally itself behind the heroics of one Dayan and left click, who asserts their dominance in the small office, to be quite honest with you. And that's where they're able to pull that attacking round win. I mean, Blackbeard as well, being a pretty big presence. You may have banned the Monty, but now you have Monty effectively with a rifle behind it. That's quite tough to deal with. You even saw a player swing him on the door and fire a couple of shots into that shield that would have surely hit the body otherwise. And again, a couple of very crucial differences, crucial forces, and operator picks even, making all the difference in that round for the attack.
Point, but now moving with second floor, and this is where I think we're gonna see who the pacemaker is for this first half. Is second floor. They got the basement, and I'm sorry, yeah, I think it was basement. Yeah, basement.
Yeah,
and now,
basement.
what I wonder is how they're gonna handle dealing with second floor, because there's a lot of utility to get through, and making those initial steps into the building on the same floor can be extremely tedious. And so the question then becomes, where do the first steps come in? And so far, they come in with getting a lot of damage onto Rennie as she tries to get a little bit of chip damage herself, but instead suffers massive damage in turn, bringing her down below 50 HP. But so far, no one's gone down quite yet. Everyone's holding still. Not a lot of real pressure to force UIUC to make a move here. They really don't have to. UMF has to get some real presence in order to force some mistakes, which is where those holds will become invaluable.
It's a lot of hovering around the windows and into stock trading, but left click might be one of the first ones to actually get a point of inference here. But as I say that, Dayan is the first one to be knocked down. Also with the ACS-12, rings out the slugs. Not quite. Well, Gunner not quite able to live for much longer as they're caught on the backside, and on long desk rotates around to rotate some slugs through the bodies of 3 players, I believe, on that round. No, 2 players, excuse me. The double kill pops up in my face, leaving only Ryda in a 1v4 situation, but Oz on the desk, high up and above. This player from University of Michigan, Flint. This angle, so incredibly deadly. A bit of a comfortable round win for UIUC once all the setup had been done and dusted. First little bit of damage had gone out onto Rennie, I believe even all the way from those windows, because they had opened up the wall by elevator, the usual pressure point that the attack applies with those ace charges. But when all is said and done, when is able to rotate over by vending and over by the long desk on top of marble stairs, there's really not a whole lot else that you can do when you're faced with the ACS-12, because that thing is a DMR, really. It may read as a shotgun. You might get challenge points for completing shotgun challenges with it, but it's a DMR with 31 rounds in it, by the way. It's absolutely insane gun in the hands of the operator that it comes with.
Oh, yeah.
But
That gun kicks. But what I absolutely love about how UIUC played that last round was the counter attack. Having someone push below into lobby and then pushing all the way out into nanovirus. Such a big counter attack, because that was a big potential choke point coming in for UIUC if left ignored. Typically, that camera doesn't get destroyed. So when you see that default cam down, that is a big red flag that something's up that usually wouldn't be the case. Right? Usually you try to full send it top square, and that was a sign of significant deviation. And they adapted to that so well. Because what better way to ensure that UMF can't get any ground than to stop them out right then and there, which is exactly what they did. And in quite clean fashion, I would add. But moving on to the next round, we've already got 2 players off the jump, now pushing towards tunnel. And I wonder if they're going to try to force a blue plant again like they did last time, which again, I still think is a mistake. Because if you go through Vault, you could pretty much ignore those players entirely, as they don't really get good lines of sights on you. And you can cut them off with a Nomad, which they do have with Joker. But it doesn't look like they're keen on taking that stance, at least not yet. So far, still quite calm and quiet. They do have presence over by bottom square. That's going to be from the walk-up coming in from Sido. Does look like they might actually be investing considerably more to clear these second floor and open area players. But we'll see if Nanovirus has anything to say about that.
Nanovirus had a lot to say about it in Cafe. KD not quite as illustrious in these rounds, but there were a couple of rounds that bumped their kill rate up to 14 in Cafe, so just a couple of rounds away from being able to make a lot of impact here. Has been blinded over by Banana, but left click has been shut down by the T5 SMG. That pick, even though it had only partially blinded the timing just wasn't quite there. The intel not quite available. Trying to drone with scope, as they say. A great long angle from Dan catches off guard. Ugh, a lot of I had to make sure I got all the right consonants and vowel sounds in there. At any rate, it's not a flawless round. Is not able to continue holding his upstairs point, which is a very crucial adjustment from UMF in this round. Previously, they had seen Nanovirus with this castle hold inside of Tellers and inside of, oh boy, well, they don't know that he's there, so Dan is the next one to go down. And even though UMF had made the adjustment, they still have to try and be able to face down the guns of UIUC, which currently outnumber them 2-1. Gunner on another off angle inside of Square makes sure that Ryda isn't able to continue for the rest of the round, as Joker peeks into the same setup that had haunted them before on basement. Down pretty low HP.
Yeah, this is a very alarming trend coming in from UMF, and right now, with no diffuser in hand, time running out, it's not looking very good for Joker, unless UIUC does something absolutely ridiculous here. But what I want to kind of talk about here with this time remaining that we have is how UMF has been struggling significantly against UIUC in dealing with roamers and these extended setups. This has been a big struggle for them. We've seen the counter push coming from UIUC. That had big impact. And there's the timeout, and correctly so, because this is a big choke point coming from them, costing them several rounds in a clean fashion. They have to figure out what to do about open area and how to keep these roamers in check. Because right now, they are unchecked powers, and boy, are they putting the hurt on them. This is where they got to figure this out.
What I feel like I've seen from UMF as well, I do agree. Playing into the choke points, getting swarmed and overwhelmed in a lot of these locations, playing into the setup of the defense is never something you want to do exactly. You want to try and counter it out a little bit. And I think that UMF, in terms of even their operator picks, has gone in this way where they're expecting a more default setup, and UIUC is showing their capability to not do something that is quite as, I guess, ranked standard in a way. You're seeing like the Capitao being brought out. You have the Nomad, maybe even a Harbreacher. I don't think we didn't have Thermite last round, but the last time that they attacked Basement, they had the Thermite. They were thinking, oh, we get open the main wall, we clear out their utility, we cut off the rotate, smoke things off, and we just get the plant off and we're good. But UIUC clearly has other plans for that, and UMF in their utility game has not been, I feel like, has not been making the adjustments necessary to overcome the powerhouse that is UIUC on this map, and the powerhouse that was Nanovirus in those castle setups. Of course, the castle is going to be in the hands of Gunner now, so different operator to pick for this one, as Rennie is also bringing out the Maestro, an operator who had seen a lot of presence on Bank previously and still has some decent presence here. Oh, this is a nasty Hey, you know what? Use that in your ranked games. That's a new one. I always love Maestro players for that.
Oh yeah. You can always expect a absurd level of creativity and the nooks and crannies that they can reach to put their Maestro camps. And that is just another example for you to put on the books, folks. But with that being said, now the question comes, how are they going to adapt? They did play this site and win it out pretty cleanly when they pushed through on Archives. And that was a pretty decisive victory, and actually their only round win. But I highly doubt with that timeout that UIUC isn't going to take the time to learn their lessons as well in figuring out how to keep away Archives. So I think this is a great, map pick coming in from UIUC in lieu of a timeout, because they're going to want to implement their strats on second floor and basement, but that opportunity is now out the window. I'm telling you, these timeouts are game changers, and I think it might have been called a little bit too early there with that site still on the table.
They haven't spotted out the Maestro cam that's sitting on the high wall that we saw Rennie set that up on, by the way. So that is still available for them. That's what Diane got, was the first Maestro cam that was over by the kitchen counter. But they haven't got the rest of that intel yet. Some intel on a player who's crossing over into main stairs, but Gunner actually gets Joker. Gets away with his life, too. About 30 HP remaining and facing down a Blackbeard, which is intimidating to say the least, but all the same, the man count had been an advantage of UMF, but will be the next one to fall. 6-4, the overall KD, so not doing too terrible for themselves. But it is still a 4v4. Sato's also been downed somewhere. Oh, down inside of Jander. Had probably caught a player rotating. Might have been Gunner, who had fired some lone shots to get that player knocked out. And with the Thunderbird gadget being on the floor here as well, the K-Kona stations, Gunner's actually going to get a lot of this HP back. And some of those early engagements that might have given UMF a bit of an advantage has now been slightly negated by this specific operator.
Oh yeah, and that's kind of where Thunderbird is strong. When you have first floor maps, this is where she shines. And speaking of shining, Saito, after getting revived, does manage to take a pick down onto Rennie, and that's going to mean those Maestro camps aren't getting any impact. That's a big loss. However, Rudy does manage to take Day in down as well, but I think a lot of utilities already been out. Another one coming in as well. That's going to be Rudy, as now the over-aggression is starting to be punishing for UIUC, as they have to hold off 2 players up with 10 seconds remaining. They still have a good opportunity. They have perfect intel on where these players are. Fuser now attempting to go down. Oh, Gunner drops the hatch. Shot's not connecting. However, Nanovirus does manage to catch Ryda, and that's going to be Diffuser as UIUC ensures a shockingly close round.
Holy smokes. That... I think I was in a bit of disbelief there, because I think that the drop from the player going through the hatch was, of course, completely unintentional. You didn't want that to happen. But the reason why the case went down, of course, to Nanovirus, but the other reason why the case wasn't planted, even if it was retrieved, was because I think that the UMF attacker thought that the other player was still on site. And so they didn't feel safe being able to plant and were caught by indecision. So a bit of a lucky mishap, really, for UIUC to be able to pull that one across the board, but they still hold incredibly strong. I mean, 4-1 on a defensive half on something that is not your map pick really does show their comfortability with the map in general. I mean, it's Bank. Bank's been in the game since basically day one, and it's a map that teams will have done all of their research on, especially because of its overall presence at higher tiers of play. Not to say that this isn't the highest tier of play, but we're not exactly at the 6 Invitational presently, but it might as well be for the Midwest R6 folks. So this has been quite the invitational event, and it's been absolutely wonderful to see these teams come together here after 3 months of play. My goodness, this is a absolutely wonderful culmination of the last few months of Rainbow Six for these collegiate teams.
Yeah, and it's been a great showing from both of these teams so far. Although UIUC clearly has a bit of an edge here. And unfortunately for UMF, they were not able to disrupt that. That was why I was saying that timeout was kind of, you know, misaligned because of the type of site that they were going to be playing against, which was innately favorable to them. And it actually turned around to be a loss. So that's actually a big step down, as now going into the second half, the best case scenario is 4-2. And speaking of, we do have actually Rennie going down very early on, and that's a big opportunity for UMF to potentially pick up a crucial round. They do have 4 flashes on the table available to them, so that does allow them to put a bit of pressure down when it comes to utility, as well as the nades coming out from Joker. But Nano's not having any of it, manages to pick themselves up yet another, and that's going to be from that elevator position. Looked like they tried to do another walk up or some kind of aggression towards lobby, and again, doesn't pay off. Oh, but Dayan catches Gunner completely off guard, sprinting right into Archives. Gotta watch out for that rogue player, and unfortunately for Gunner, he was not quite well prepared for that situation. But we are seeing a potential force plan here, as they have repelled in. However, Dayan manages to catch Rudy, and diffusing has stopped. Minute and 10 seconds. Now they have presence on site. Nanovirus trying to catch the repeller, does succeed in doing that, but goes down in turn. That means they're gonna have a pretty safe plant unless Nano can spot where this diffuse is going down. Nitro goes out, doesn't connect. It doesn't, narrowly misses left click, and that means diffuser's going down. They know he's below. It's gonna mean he's gonna have to walk up. We do see a drop coming in from top square, banking on that being the location of the rotate, but it's not. However, shots are gonna review where he's actually coming from, and this is going to allow for ample time to get up on the, I believe that's the repel, so there's a window hop out, not top square, I do apologize. But with 19 seconds to go, now has to deal with a repel player and another player who's still somewhere close by. This is going to make for a straining situation. There's the swing, Nano able to catch him, and this is with 8 seconds remaining, has to start the fuse, looking for that repel pick, tries to vault, but it doesn't matter. Dayan is ready, and that's going to give UMF actually their second round, making this much more doable with a 4-2 on the swap.
Fantastic heads up play from Dayan, by the way. Player had been rotating in through the bottom of tellers. They had gotten a little bit of presence over by square. They got that wall open as you do with your regular bank checklist going into a CEO attack. But Dayan was downstairs inside of tellers trying to catch anybody who might be rotating up behind his team, really making sure that everything was safe and clearing the way for that plant to actually go down. And that's where you see that first kill go out to the Kite, who had been rotating on the bottom of square. Because I think the Kite had heard a player inside the archives, and that's why they swung the door in the way that they did. But when all is said and done, Dayan is able to get that first kill, and then get the heads-up play to walk in through the breach that had been made on the back of the CEO wall. And from there, the round is blown wide open. They know that Nano is rotated into main because of the player who, I think it was Joker, who was playing the Finka on the rappel, who dies to that MP7 ringing out. And the round eventually goes UMF's way just because of really good intel, or I want to put it more in the terms of execution on intel. You can get intel, you can get information, but it's also more about what you do with it. And I think that UMF's adjustment to more immediately react to things, especially in the form of Dayan, who was the star of that last round, gets them to at least a 4-2 half. It's not an ideal position to be in. You always want to be even or even at an advantage if you're playing as UMF, but UIUC, they're not going to be too upset with a 4-2 half. But with it being the attack, they now have the harder half of Siege to play, and they spot out an Echo Drone. Ooh, that Echo Drone had been extremely sneakily placed, but this IQ is clearing off so much utility, giving them so much intel in terms of how this team is choosing to set up. The Echo Drone placed inside of what do they call this office? I can't remember. It's like taking office. I can't remember. Oh no, I'm losing my calls.
I just call it connector. But anyway.
Connector, yeah.
Yeah, but what I love about the IQ pick is the fact that what it does for them is it allows them to play the slow game and completely get away with it. Wow, that's a bold repel. I do not recommend that, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why that doesn't usually go well. Does manage to catch Dayan down, but goes out in turn, and there's still an Echo Cam out there. Rennie, she's going to be able to take Saito down. That's going to be Echo player, but there's still, I believe, an Echo Cam that has eyes on everything out in lobby. Or maybe they finally caught it. I'm not 100% sure, but that still gives a pretty big idea of what UIUC's plan here. And so far, Dayan has still not been revived yet. Oh, never mind. As I say that, does finally get picked back up. And now here comes the push-up from lobby. But unfortunately for UIUC, UMF is pretty much completely prepared for this as they manage to catch one. But Rudy does take Riot down, bringing it down. Yet another player left going down from a very nice wall bang. And there's the pushback, but that's going to come from Dayan. But Gunner shuts that down. And this is going to be a rapid pace turnaround coming from UIUC as they get a successful push up into lobby. Huge plays coming in from Rudy. Now a 3v1. Joker stuck in closet. They have the information on him. No element of surprise coming out here. With 27 seconds to spare, there's plenty of opportunity for UIUC to get a plant down as long as they don't misstep here. And now the plant goes down. They do have a eyes on the diffuser. Does get the down though. However, takes a significant amount of damage as that repel player is still around. That's gonna be Rennie. However, that reveals huge information that he has an opportunity to push this. And if he does, that can be disastrous. And oh no, he gets it. That's gonna be Joker taking Gunner. Huge play. And now Rennie has no option to defuse. Too far away. Oh, the shots revealing her position. That gave all the inclination to go aggressive there, and he took it.
Stunning 1v3. A little bit of a... Being able to swing wide on long desk to catch the player who is planting right by the bomb chassis in a position that they thought they were safe is the first key for Joker to win that round. Now, with the player down, they have to either go for the pickup in an unsafe location, or they have to go and contest the player directly themselves. Now, they think that they have the player dead to rights because of the rotate that they can cut off from that repel outside of lobby, but they don't end up getting it at the end of the day. And Joker pulls off a complete hero play, wins the rate of fire war. And with the one player still being out on repel so late into the round, this is big. This could be a map that takes you 3 to 5 business days to rotate around. You don't have enough time to actually get back to the diffuser to plant the case and win the objective game. So UMF, off of a hero play from Joker, wins the round. But from, again, very narrow margins. A lot of these, the game itself has been so close. We've seen clutch plays. We've seen rounds go in different directions. Utility. We saw the Echo denial from Cafe earlier in the 1v4. There have been so many instances like this where players are in these 1v4 situations and they manage to play the objective just perfectly enough to get themselves a round win. And at this point, with UMF being down rounds, every single round that they can get is all the more power to their case of being able to possibly tie things up and send us to a map 3. Will we see Gonzlet? Who knows? Only the next few rounds will tell.
This is really aggressive coming in from Dayan, holding in blue alone with no support. And you've got several players lined up to push tunnel. 3 players. You still got a Goyo to hold this back. All of this droning, all of this patience, and unfortunately, it's not going to pay off if this Goyo hits that canister at the correct timing. And with the reinforce, he has no options. But he decides to potentially go aggressive here close to tunnel. And there's that push-up. Is he going to find one? Oh, no, he doesn't. That's going to be a strong pick. And another as Saito's holding aggressively as well. This is a big turnaround for UIUC as they have every ground to go active here. However, they do catch the Goyo. However, you got Nanovirus who's on site right now. This walk-up is disastrous for UMF. However, they were able to turn it back down to a 1-person disadvantage. They were able to shut down Nanovirus, who could have wreaked havoc. And that does result in a significant amount of territory loss. But the fact of the matter remains, they've still caught a player down. Now, UMF is going to be, for at least the next 20 seconds, scrambling to adjust to this sudden reality. I like the boldness coming in, but it doesn't pay off for Dayan or UMF, as it does look like UIUC will be able to get the plant down pretty much uncontested thanks to losing both Goyo and Smoke. Plant now down, and it's gonna be an uphill battle to take this back. Look at how locked up they are over towards Blue and Server. That's gonna be really tough, especially when you got 3 back-to-back picks from UC shutting down UMF and putting them back at a considerable lead advantage.
Fantastic setup from the attack there. Once they got those first 2 picks from the over-aggression on server, they were quite literally able to walk in, left click with the Blackbeard leading the charge, gets caught by a player sitting in the back of Gold Vault to not exactly hold the line, but after the Goyo canisters had been popped, sure, it stops a little bit of time. It delays the attack a little bit. But when the dust settles, UIUC is well and ready, available to get the plant down. Now, I'm a little bit confused as to where the Echo was exactly. I think Twitch might have actually got the last drone because it was hidden underneath the desk there. But all the same, UMF started at a disadvantage, and UIUC were able to push that advantage that they had for themselves to make sure that they cleared out, well, that they capitalized on the advantage that had been given to them by, gifted to them in some ways, you might even say. We're still going back to basement, by the way, pretty much the exact same setup with the Jaeger and the Echo and the Smoke, all of the, the same kind of operators across the board, but without UMF reading into a blitz play, they've decided to go for the ILLINI. However, Rennie does have the blitz in hand. We do also have a Kappa Tau to try and take out some of these players who are anchoring in positions a little bit more. I think some of the drone play that UIUC had seen from the last round. Oh, this is not at all. This is a much more lateral take than I expected. There are 4 players who have dropped into the vault hatch. The Echo has been spotted out inside of gold, but he is absolutely screaming for his teammates before being cut down ruthlessly by the Lion of Rudy. A smoke grenade goes out, but Dayan actually gets one back onto us. So not all has been lost for the defense yet, despite the aggressive positioning. Gunner coming up from Garage gets one more player, takes a lot of HP out of Sato. It's a 3v3, make that a 3v2 as Nanovirus is now crawling on the ground, will be revived to 20 HP. A great shot from Joker. It's a 1v3. Gunner has to win it all for his team here. The 2v1 situation.
Wow, what an
elevator, but the rotate!
Oh, my gosh, he catches a triple kill, catching Joker on the rotate. This is big. This just brought the hands back, or the cards back into UIUC's hands. And now it's a matter of taking this last fight against Saito, but he's still got smoke canisters in hand. That's going to displace shot and pot damage coming in, bringing Saito down to very low HP. It all comes down to this last bit of damage. Another smoke canister coming down. Gonna get a little bit of damage onto Gunner here, and so close with this shotgun. This is gutsy, and there's the vault. Wow! Aggressive coming from Saito to shut him down. UMF still on the board with only 1 round behind.
You see the positioning that UIUC is able to gather, and the immediate thought is that UIUC, they have found a weakness in the armor of UMF. They catch the Echo player in Gold Vault immediately. They push their advantage, but from there, UMF rallies behind it. They don't have as much of an extended roam as UIUC might have expected or anticipated from Bank. And because of that, their defenders are close at home. They make that rotate back so quickly, so efficiently. Joker is inside a vault, gets a very, I would say, a lucky hipfire headshot onto the player that was trying to aggress him in the back of main vault. He also downed the Grim there to push that their team advantage, to actually get the rotates out. Gunner, even though they were coming up from garage, they weren't able to capitalize on it fully. There was just like some slight missteps, some slight mishaps from UIUC. They tried to go for a bit of a gambit to push things into map point, but those gambits, as we saw from the cafe side, doesn't always end up working for them. UMF are able to read into the goofy strats and basically bat them away. So if UIUC wants to bring this back around, I think they'll have to be doing a lot of the same, because it has been working for them. But if UMF win this, it'll be an exact reverse result of Cafe, where UIUC was down 5-3, and then they won in regulation. UMF is down 5-3, and maybe they could string 3 more rounds together to win this in regulation.
It's definitely within the round of possibility, especially if they can pull out strong defenses like that. But I mean, the problem is that kind of came out of UIUC yet again, taking another unnecessary gambit that makes it a lot closer than for them win-wise than it potentially has to be. It's these things that usually puts UIUC in a very close bind. So while I do like the initiative, I don't think it was very well placed, as it now puts them only at a 1-round advantage. But maybe they can get away with it. Who knows? Because so far, UIUC really doesn't have to worry about anything when it comes to roamers, as every single player is above right now, which means that they can full send it without much issue. And speaking of full sending, Rudy on the rappel, able to catch left click out of red field, able to take a very early, or I wouldn't say early, but an unexpected pick, considering how slow it's been so far. A slow creep up coming in from UIUC. Now with a player advantage, able to sneak past the main stairs camp, there could be opportunities for more sneaky picks. It's very sneaky, like coming in here. And oh, there it is, looking away. Saito at the very last second manages. Gunner gonna be able to take 1, and this is quite a significant displacement. However, Ryder with a fast rotate manages to catch Gunner all the way onto main stairs, but this gives a lot of space for roaming and mobility on UIUC, which could prove problematic. And
There's so much intel potential, but Dayan falls to the AK-12 in Rennie's hands, leaving only 2 players remaining for UMF. Joker, who had been a hero in the basement round, will also have to repeat their own heroics here, as UIUC looks to tighten the noose around the neck of Michigan Flint to put us to match point, potentially. The numbers do favor them. They know there's a player inside a janitor, but they're not totally aware where this last player is, the unknown. But Rennie is going in for a plant here again on this faded default spot next to the bomb. But Joker won't be able to be swinging around for a clutch play this time. Nanovirus cuts them down. It's only Ryder left alone, and in fact, it'll be nobody left remaining for UMF as UIUC close out an attacking round win and take us to match and series point.
Yeah, UMF was showing a bit of promise there after shutting down that cheeky play from UIUC. However, in standard play, they're still struggling, unfortunately, and we're seeing just that as we're now in match point. They've got to pick up 2 rounds. And they've been able to bring it close before, but I'm not too sure if that's going to be the case again, unless UIUC takes another gambit. Which right now, I don't think there's a reason to do that. They're on open area, and don't get me wrong, they did lose this round, but it was still extremely close, and it just so happened that loss was due to a minor mishap at the very end, like you said before. So now, this is very 50-50, I would say. And then they have to go back to either basement or second floor, which UIUC have made some very big strides in. And as long as we don't see any cocky behavior, which considering the current composition, I doubt that's going to be the case, we could see a closeout right here, right now. But again, this is probably the most contestable map and the most favorable for UMF or site, in my opinion.
Verticality is going to be the name of the game. That Buck-Ram combo can make cardboard, styrofoam pellets out of that top floor, out of the ceiling above this site. But UMF also has a comp that is possibly well equipped to deal with that upstairs presence, with Joker having the Boss G for Vigil in hand. This weapon had been buffed a little bit ago to get those one-shot body shots. It has been the preferred weapon, actually, for people playing this operator. And when you have the Vigil on board, now you have to be worried about there being a roam presence, especially when you're playing on a site that is so key in being able to take top floor presence. Uh-oh, this could be a really bad engagement here. The IQ spotted, but Gunner's a little bit quicker on the draw. Joker can't make the shot land, and so Gunner gets away with all of their HP intact. Left click also taking damage elsewhere over by the marble stairs. Sato also making a bit of an escape for themselves inside a janitor. A wide swing by the IQ player. Gunner is down on the ground, so Sato will be able to even out the man count just a little bit here. But in terms of the aggression of the ILLINI Esports attack, the ability for them to take this space and still have a lot of their key operators still remaining. Oh no, Dayan doesn't make it count where it needs to. Now I'm a little bit worried for UMF's chances as they go down in man advantage. This is map and series point again. Minute and a half remaining. Ace charges going out onto the main walls. Buck is still above. Ram drones eating up the floor with those floor-eating Roombas.
This is a dire situation for UMF. Dayan needed to take that pick onto He had no idea he was there when he was breaching in and was focused on posit, but got taken out in turn. That's a big loss. You know, because if that player was still alive, they would be able to hold back this vertical, which is now in full motion. This makes things a lot harder for UMF to deal with, as they're going to be displaced a good distance away from site, which gives UIUC a lot of clearance to move down. However, they still have heavy vertical presence. They're going to have to move down to horizontal, and that's where the potential pushback could come in. You've got Saito over by lobby as well as left click. Again, just big displacement, very heavily split up for UMF. However, Ryda, who's still on site, manages to hold the fort down, takes Rennie down, bringing it an even 3v3. However, Ryda does go down, and that means that they are going to have site control, which means we could possibly see a plant very soon. However, left click is now pushing from above. I don't think UIUC is ready for this. This could be huge in turning it around and saving them for UMF if they can get some impact out of this. But unfortunately for them, Saito goes down, diffuser now off, but it doesn't seem like they have information on left click, and that's going to be huge for taking getting that initial momentum. Just needs to split these gunfights out accordingly. However, minimal information is available, so I have to take the raw gunfights, and unfortunately just can't do it with Nanovirus. Closing it out for the third place.
Beautiful play from ILLINI Esports to take it back on UMF's pick in an almost similar fashion in terms of round count. 7-4 is what we're going to be left with on bank. ILLINI Esports are your third place champions, I guess? Well, your third place runners-up for the likes of Midwest R6. There's your team, folks. They played extremely well on these last couple of maps and absolutely showed that they are deserving of this position, and hopefully we'll see a better run from them over the next season when they do come back around. What a stellar match.
And I think there's a lot of promise there. I mean, they really did give UIUC a run for their money in Cafe Dostoevsky. And even despite the struggles, they were still able to pull around 4 rounds. I mean, still a win, but not quite decisive on either of those maps. We didn't see a blowout, even though the statistics heavily hinted at that, but that really didn't come to be the case. And UIUC is a pretty well-placed team. So for them to put up a fight like that, that's a strong showing for their second season. So, I mean, honestly, I think that it can only go up for them, honestly. That was a really good fight that they put up. They had some great strides, some unfortunate situations, but also good clutches coming out as well. So I really do think that they are going to be a team to keep an eye out on for next season. I really do think they've got it. And I will be very invested in how they progress going forward. But of course, UIUC, still consistent, strong adaptations, and overall playing just very well and looking put together as a team, which is what we would expect in these higher division rosters coming out. So great showing from both teams, honestly, and a heck of a matchup, as there was genuine belief that UMF would come out on top. It's not like this was, lopsided, landslide. No, not at all. Like, there was a genuine tension for UMF to come out on top.
Yeah, a couple of missteps here and there will cause them to fall, and Illini Esports to take the advantage and win 3rd place overall for the Midwest R6. Congratulations to everyone there. Before we close things out, we're going to go ahead with an interview, and then we'll go into the next match. But before that, before the interview and everything else that we have to go on with, we're going to take a slight break. We'll be right back.
Tap, tap, yeah, I want that. No lines, I don't cut back. Sweet, salty, and all that. Let loose, come get that. Can you play that back, back, back? Can you run that back, back, back? I'm trying to play that back, back, back. I want that. Tap, tap, let's go, let's go. Tap, tap, let's go, let's go. Tap, tap, let's go, let's go. Right here, can you feel? Let's go. Tap, tap, let's go, let's go. Tap, tap, let's go, let's go. Tap, tap, let's go, let's go. Right here, can you feel that? Ooh, you feel that? Ooh, the real back. Ooh, I'm still that. Ooh, you catch that? Ooh, I guess that. The best back. Yeah, yeah. 30,000 up, I'm a pilot. Might jump out if I'm wildin'. Catch my flow, I'm so stylish. Tap, tap, real smooth. Can you play that back, back, back? Can you run that back, back, back? I'm trying to play that back, back, back. I want that. Tap, tap, let's go, let's go. Tap, tap, let's go, let's go. Tap, tap, let's go, let's go. Right here, can you feel? Let's go. I'ma give it all I got, can't quit, can't stop. I'ma be shut it down like this. You ain't coming to my house, you ain't about what I'm about. Taking nothing down. Defense wins games, whatever it takes, I bring it. Defense wins games, whatever it takes, I bring it. I'ma give it all I got, can't quit, can't stop. I'ma be shut it down like this. Defense wins games, whatever it takes, I bring it out. Let's go! Beats.
All right, and we are back, ladies and gentlemen, and I am here with the myth, the legend himself, the man who doesn't miss. It's
Ah,
so.
Thank you,
Firstly, I
thank
want
you.
to say that and congrats on the win. You did pretty well there, I gotta say.
Yeah, we played well, I think.
Absolutely. But I do want to kind of start off with how this matchup went out. UMF, statistically speaking, was not looking too strong from the information that was available, but they still put up quite a fight. So I guess my first question is, what are your thoughts on UMF's performance there? As statistically, they quite to a substantial degree outperformed it. And did you think it was going to be this close, especially on Cafe?
Uh, I mean, yeah, I think every match we play, it's honestly a toss-up. Like it for our team at least, it depends more of like how well we play rather than like how good the other team is. I mean, we played some really good players before, and like it didn't feel close at all. And sometimes we would play like lower seeded teams, and we were fighting for our lives. Uh, so it's more on us, I think.
Gotcha. That's a fair perspective.
you guys took Cafe after what would be some scares. I mean, you were down 5-3 and then strung 4 rounds back together.
Yeah.
And looking at last week's matchup that I was also present for, you guys didn't win Cafe against Purdue Gold, ended up losing that 7-1. So my question to you, after being 5-3 down, you guys had that timeout.
Yeah.
What was the adaptation? What were the changes that you guys made to actually push that one over the line?
Yeah, so Nanovirus, our IGL, he called the timeout. He stopped us, and the conversation there was basically we were essentially just like giving up space, or sorry, I'm like trying to remember back to the first match, but
Fine.
yeah, I believe we were on the defensive half.
Mhm.
So um like he basically sat us down and said we were giving them too much space, right? And we needed to basically just fight them where they were at. We lost Cafe in our last week's match, so it was kind of like a confidence killer. And I think for the first few rounds of defense, at least, we just resorted to a lot of like default holds that like I would imagine every team has played hundreds of times before. So it was very easy for the other team to like dismantle. And he basically pulled us off of like thinking about the strats and more of like uh just fighting them where they came.
I like that
Quick question.
adaptation.
A quick counter for you, because I'm actually really surprised you said that. You guys were kind of mentioning, or you kind of mentioned playing it a bit safe, confidence issues.
Yeah.
But on the final round of the first half, round 6, you guys ran it down with a rush. And then the round after, you made another gambit call by going second floor, which isn't as typical. And both of those ended up not working out. And that's where the lead started. So where did that decision come from? I'm kind of perplexed if that was the mentality for the game.
Sorry, round 6. I don't remember that. That was Cafe like.
You guys all jumped into VIP with the blitz and then
Oh,
got smoked on the deployable shield there.
yeah. So that was so our logic behind that is that the round before, or yeah, one of the attacks before, we did like a top down like slow take, and then we're planning on executing on site. And uh if I remember correctly, that didn't really work out. So we we sort of like shifted gears because if we attacked top down again, they would be sort of like ready for that. And we noticed that like their VIP, even though they were extending upwards, they still had like hatches reinforced and stuff. So it would be really hard for them to essentially respond to like a really fast like take. Our original plan was nobody should be dying to the VIP guy, and we'd be walking into sight. But I remember, I think the one thing that messed that up was just the timing. So like the basis of that strat was just like while Blitz is distracting from VIP window, like with the sends out, like he should have a clear shot to VIP. The Warden should be distracted with him. And so I was the Glaz, so the plan was for me to basically sneak up on him and just like hit him from behind. But that didn't happen because they unfortunately had a goo mine on the window, and that threw the timing off completely. And so Warden was able to just have a 1 with me, and I did not win that.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot of sense in that context. I was definitely kind of thinking about what the decision making there was, because that was where the lead started, to which you guys excellently called the timeout at the best time. So I mean,
Yeah.
props to you guys for utilizing your timeout efficiently, because that was a big turning point, especially with dealing with the walk-ups that we were seeing down from first floor up to second. That had a big impact on you guys prior to the timeout, and you
Yeah.
guys perfectly nailed that. So props to you on that. I'm always going to praise a team that uses their timeouts correctly.
Thank you.
And
Soldier?
moving on to Bank as well, what do you guys think went so well? Obviously, it wasn't your map pick; it was UMF's map pick. But when
Yeah.
we looked at the setups that you guys had going into it, you looked like you were really well prepared for it. So, was it something that you had researched ahead of time, or were you just like, "Hey, let's just riff on this. Let's just see what happens"?
No, it was definitely improv, like at best.
I
If I don't know, I know definitely during that game I was like adapting. There were things that I thought, oh, I need to reinforce this now. Like our defenses were it changed round by round, but I think it mostly worked out because like I think carrying from map 1, it was just we needed the attitude of just fighting them where they came instead of like letting them work us essentially. And so our setup didn't really matter as long as we were there, and like play together and stuff.
Yeah, it's
Gotcha, that
totally
element
fair.
of yeah, that element of unpredictability. Now, I do have to question. There was one round that ended up being kind of a struggle that I wanted kind of more information on. This was against Joker, 1v3, second floor. You guys had pretty much full site control, and then you lost the planter
Oh
twice,
my
and you
god.
had Rennie, and she was still outside holding the
Yeah,
rappel.
yeah.
So I gotta ask, what was happening there? Because you guys were looking so good, and then tragedy struck.
Yeah, you have no idea. I during that round
really
I was screaming like so. Oh my god. I mean I noticed that like immediately when it was a 3v1. Our teammates they were pretty calm, and like I didn't want to clutter the comms like too much and stuff. But I noticed Rennie was on the Kanto repel, and like at least to me that's just like a very infamous spot where essentially if you miss your shot or if something goes wrong, there's nothing else you can do to like help your
Yep.
team, and it essentially cuts it down to like a 2v1 um for no reason basically. And I remember during that round I guess I got drowned out in the comms or something, or like I literally called for the 2 people site to wait and for Rennie to walk into the building. But I mean, I don't know what happened. She seemed pretty confident, I think, on the rappel, and unfortunately, that's how it played out. Um, yeah, but I mean, I was aware of the risks at least.
Oh yeah,
You know,
despite a few charity rounds, you'll still win it out 2-0 at the end of the day.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
miscoms are inevitable. Soldier?
Yeah, I think that's all of my questions for this evening. You got anything else for us, Piercing?
I'm just one question, and now that we're getting towards the end of the season,
Mhm.
what is your plan towards establishing better consistency? Because you've shown your prowess in toppling even some of the best of the teams that we have to offer here at Midwest R6. But sometimes consistency can be a real chokehold, as we've discussed and you've brought up. So my question then becomes, what are the next steps to kind of nail it down? And are there any incoming roster changes that could throw a wrench into that strand or plan?
Yeah, so I think the deal with consistency is just like at least for our team, it's we have 2 new prospects essentially that we picked up this semester. Um, and like this is their first time playing collegiate, so there's that. Um, I mean, Nanovirus hasn't been playing for a while, so I think the problems with consistency is just a matter of like spending more time playing together, whether it's just like scrims, like ranked matches, or just playing comp games. Like I think
Okay.
we're still very like young team, I guess, and I mean we'll see. As for like roster changes and stuff, I don't. I mean, I'm not really thinking about those issues. I'll just leave it to my higher ups. I'm just the grunt in the machine. Like I'm a cog. So I
Aren't we
don't think about
all?
those things. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, those are all easily fixable issues. You know,
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
That just really comes down to scheduling. So that's very doable. So I look forward to how you guys perform next season because you all performed really well despite the setback of having two newer players. And I mean, that went really well. Third place is quite commendable with what
Yeah.
would be considered a monumental setback for most teams. So that's quite impressive. But
And no, I
with
agree. I
that being,
agree.
yeah. And with that being said, do you got any other shout outs before we close this one out?
I mean, shout out to Rudy and Gunnar, the two new players. They've handled themselves really well. I remember when I first started playing collegiate, I was nowhere like near as like, prepared or like
I
we didn't
felt
get
that.
any results similar to these. So I think it's impressive. So shout out to them.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to conclude our interview, but we're not done yet, ladies and gentlemen. We've still got a grand finals, the big meat and potatoes of this live stream. So stay tuned for that. However, unfortunately, that does mean that, again, my time is up. I will not be casting the grand finals as much as I'd love to, but we've got two lovely casters who will be there to take my stead. So with that being said, Soldier, do you got any other final comments before we move on to the grand finals?
Nah, just I've just got like my congratulations, of course, to and the rest of ILLINI Esports for all you guys getting to the third
Absolutely.
place at the end of the day. And thanks for watching, for sticking around for the two very electric maps that were brought here. And we'll see you all real soon.